in the heart of a small Nigerian village, where the red dust of the earth clung to everything it touched, lived a young man named Benjamin. At 30 years old, he carried the weight of the world on his slender shoulders. The village, with its mud huts and corrugated iron roofs, was a place where dreams came to die, suffocated by the harsh realities of poverty. Benjamin's home was a small, dilapidated structure on the outskirts of the village. The thatched roof leaked when it rained, and the mud walls were cracked and crumbling. It was here that he lived with his ailing father, Papa Benji, his aging mother Agatha, and his young sister Christabel. As the first light of dawn broke through the gaps in the roof, Benjamin stirred from his restless sleep on the hard-packed earth floor. He rubbed his eyes, feeling the familiar ache in his bones from another night of discomfort. The air was already thick with humidity, promising another scorching day. "Benjamin, my son," came the weak voice of Papa Benji from the corner of the hut. "Is it morning already?" Benjamin crawled over to his father's side. Papa Benji lay on a thin mat, his once strong frame now wasted by illness. His skin hung loosely on his bones, and his eyes were sunken and dull. "Yes, Papa," Benjamin replied, forcing a smile. "How are you feeling today?" Papa Benji attempted to sit up but fell back with a groan. "The pain, it never leaves me, my son. Have you found any work?" Benjamin's heart clenched. He had been searching for work for months, but in a village where everyone was struggling, opportunities were scarce. "Not yet, Papa, but I will keep trying, I promise." From the other side of the hut, Agatha stirred. She was a small woman, bent with age and hardship. Her eyes, though, still held a fierce love for her family. "Benjamin," she called softly, "there's a little cassava left. Make sure your father eats." Benjamin nodded, knowing full well that the little cassava was barely enough for one person, let alone the four of them. He would make sure his parents and Christabel ate before he even thought of his own hunger. As if on cue, Christabel emerged from behind a tattered cloth that served as a partition in their small home. At 19, she should have been full of life and dreams. Instead, her eyes held a resigned sadness that broke Benjamin's heart. "Good morning, everyone," she said quietly, moving to help her mother up. Benjamin stood, stretching his tall frame. "I'll go fetch some water," he announced. "Then I'll see if anyone in the village needs help with anything." As he stepped out of the hut, the full heat of the day hit him. The village was already stirring, women balancing water jugs on their heads, men heading to the fields with hose slung over their shoulders. Benjamin nodded greetings as he passed, but he could feel the pitying looks that followed him. Everyone knew of the Benji family's struggles. They had once been respected in the village. Papa Benji had been a teacher, educated in the city. But when the school closed due to lack of funding and illness struck, their fortunes had rapidly declined. Benjamin made his way to the village well, his own water jug in hand. As he approached, he saw a familiar figure, his Uncle Austin. Uncle Austin stood out in the village with his protruding belly and fine clothes, a stark contrast to the lean, simply dressed villagers around him. "Ah, Benjamin!" Uncle Austin called out, his voice booming. "How is my dear brother today?" Benjamin gritted his teeth. Uncle Austin's feigned concern was a thinly veiled attempt to flaunt his own success. "He is the same, Uncle. The sickness is strong." Uncle Austin clicked his tongue in mock sympathy. "Such a shame. If only there was something to be done. But these treatments are so expensive, aren't they? Benjamin felt a surge of anger. Uncle Austin had more than enough money to help, but his long-standing jealousy of Papa Benji had twisted his heart. Yes, Uncle, they are. Well, keep your chin up, boy, Uncle Austin said, slapping Benjamin on the back, hard enough to make him stumble. I'm sure things will work out, somehow. With a laugh, he sauntered away, leaving Benjamin seething. As Benjamin filled his jug, he overheard whispers from the women at the well. Did you hear? Mr. Okon is back in the village. Shh. Don't speak his name so loudly. He might hear you. Benjamin's ears perked up. Mr. Okon was infamous in their village and the surrounding areas. A man of immense wealth and even greater cruelty, he was said to have made his fortune through dark means. Rumor had it that he was a ritualist, dealing in human lives for power and money. I heard he killed a man in the next village just for not greeting him on the road, one woman whispered. It wouldn't surprise me, another replied. Remember what happened to old Mama Ease when she accidentally bumped into him at the market? Benjamin shuddered. He remembered. Mama Ease had disappeared that very night, never to be seen again. With his jug full, Benjamin made his way back home. The weight of the water was nothing compared to the weight in his heart. How could he provide for his family? How could he save his father? As he approached their hut, he heard Christabel's voice raised in distress. Mama, Papa, please eat something. You need your strength. Benjamin hurried inside to find Christabel, trying to convince their parents to eat the meager portion of cassava. No, my child, Agatha said weakly. You and Benjamin need it more. We have lived our lives. Don't say that, Mama, Benjamin interjected, setting down the water jug. Here, let me help. He took the small bowl of cassava and divided it into 4 tiny portions. We will all eat, he said firmly. We are in this together. As they ate their pitiful meal in silence, Benjamin's mind raced. There had to be a way out of this poverty, this endless struggle. He would do anything at all, to see his family healthy and happy again. As the day wore on, Benjamin set out to look for work. The sun beat down mercilessly as he walked from house to house, farm to farm, offering his services. But everywhere he went, he was met with the same response. Sorry, Benjamin. Times are hard for everyone. We barely have enough for ourselves, my boy. Maybe next time, eh? By late afternoon, Benjamin found himself at the edge of the village, near the forest. His shoulders slumped in defeat, his stomach growling with hunger. He looked back at the village, then at the dense forest before him. The cool shade of the trees beckoned, offering a brief respite from the relentless heat. I'll just rest for a moment, he muttered to himself, stepping into the forest. The temperature dropped immediately as he entered the green canopy. Benjamin took a deep breath, savoring the earthy smell of the forest. He walked deeper, allowing the sounds of birds and insects to wash over him, momentarily drowning out the worries that plagued his mind. After a few minutes of walking, Benjamin came across a small stream. The water gurgled invitingly, and he realized how thirsty he was. He knelt by the stream, cupping his hands to drink the cool, clear water. As he straightened up, wiping his mouth, something caught his eye. Just a few feet away, half hidden by a large fern, was what looked like a bag. Curious, Benjamin approached cautiously. It was indeed a bag a large black duffel bag that seemed out of place in the lush green of the forest. Benjamin's heart began to race. With trembling hands, he reached out and unzipped the bag. His eyes widened in shock. The bag was full of cash, more money than Benjamin had ever seen in his life. Stacks and stacks of naira notes, neatly bundled. This can't be real, Benjamin whispered, his voice shaky. He picked up one of the bundles, feeling its weight in his hand. It was real, all right. But where had it come from? And who did it belong to? As if in answer to his unspoken questions, a twig snapped somewhere in the forest. Benjamin froze, his blood turning to ice in his veins. He wasn't alone. Quickly, he zipped up the bag and crouched behind a large tree. His heart pounding so loudly he was sure it could be heard for miles. 2 men emerged from the thick undergrowth. Benjamin's breath caught in his throat as he recognized one of them, Mr. Okon. Even from a distance, Mr. Okon was an intimidating figure. Tall and powerfully built, he moved with the confidence of a predator. His companion was a nervous-looking man Benjamin didn't recognize. "Are you sure this is where you left it?" Mr. Okon's voice was low and menacing. Yes, sir," the other man stammered. "Right by this stream, I swear." Mr. Okon's hand shot out, grabbing the man by the throat. "For your sake, it better be here. You know what happens to those who disappoint me." Benjamin watched in horror as the 2 men searched the area where the bag had been. His mind raced. The money belonged to Mr. Okon, the most dangerous man in the region. To take it would be suicide, but to leave it... Images flashed through Benjamin's mind. His father wasting away without proper medical care. His mother growing weaker by the day. Christabel, her youth slipping away under the burden of poverty. And Uncle Austin sneering at their misfortune. "It's not here." The panicked cry of Mr. Okon's companion snapped Benjamin back to the present. Mr. Okon's face contorted with rage. "You fool! You've cost me a fortune." What happened next would haunt Benjamin's dreams for years to come. With a movement so swift it was almost invisible, Mr. Okon pulled out a knife and slashed the other man's throat. The unfortunate soul crumpled to the ground, his life bleeding out onto the forest floor. Benjamin clapped a hand over his mouth to stifle a gasp. He watched, paralyzed with fear, as Mr. Okon calmly wiped his knife on the dead man's shirt. "Let this be a lesson," Mr. Okon muttered. "No one steals from me and lives." With that, he turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving the body behind. Benjamin remained hidden, shaking uncontrollably for what seemed like hours. When he was finally sure Mr. Okon was gone, he emerged from his hiding place on wobbly legs. The bag of money was still there, mere feet away from a dead man. Benjamin's mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. The money could save his family, give them the life they deserved. But it belonged to a murderer, a man who wouldn't hesitate to kill Benjamin and his entire family if he found out. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees, Benjamin made his decision. With a silent prayer for forgiveness, he grabbed the bag and ran, leaving the grisly scene behind. The weight of the bag was nothing compared to the weight of what he had just witnessed, of what he was about to do. As he ran, branches whipping at his face, Benjamin knew that his life would never be the same again. Little did he know just how prophetic that thought would prove to be. For in taking that bag, Benjamin had set in motion a chain of events that would bring both salvation and destruction, hope and despair, life and death. As darkness fell over the village, Benjamin stumbled into his family's hut, breathless and wide-eyed. The bag of money was hidden safely in the forest, buried under a distinctive tree he would never forget. "Benjamin!" Christabel exclaimed, rushing to her brother's side. "Where have you been? We were so worried." Benjamin looked at his sister's concerned face, then at his parents. Papa Benji was asleep, his breathing labored. Agatha sat beside him, her lined face etched with worry. In that moment, looking at his struggling family, Benjamin knew he had made the right choice. No matter the consequences, he would use that money to save them. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said, forcing a smile. "But I have good news. I think things are about to change for us." As Christabel hugged him in relief, Benjamin's eyes met his mother's across the room. Agatha's gaze was penetrating, as if she could see right through him. For a fleeting moment, Benjamin felt a chill run down his spine. What had he done? And more importantly, what would he do next? The following days passed in a blur for Benjamin. He spent his time alternating between caring for his family and sneaking out to the forest to check on the hidden money. Each time he unearthed the bag, his heart raced with a mixture of excitement and fear. 1 week after finding the money, Benjamin decided it was time to act. He couldn't bear to see his father suffer any longer. "I'm going to the city," he announced one morning, surprising his family. "The city?" Agatha's brow furrowed with concern. "But Benjamin, we have no money for such a journey." Benjamin forced a smile. "Don't worry, Mama. I've been saving a little, and I heard there might be work there. It's worth a try, isn't it?" Christabel looked at him suspiciously. "Saving? But how? We barely have enough to eat." "Trust me, sister," Benjamin said, avoiding her eyes. "Sometimes opportunities come when we least expect them." That night, as the village slept, Benjamin crept out to the forest. He dug up the bag and took out enough money for his trip and to leave some for his family. As he reburied the rest, a twig snapped nearby, making him jump. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling. Silence answered him. After a tense moment, a bush rustled and a small antelope darted away. Benjamin exhaled in relief, but the incident left him shaken. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The next morning, Benjamin set out for the city. The bus ride was long and uncomfortable, but Benjamin barely noticed. His mind was consumed with plans and worries. How would he explain his sudden wealth? What if Mr. Okun somehow traced the money back to him? In the city, Benjamin's senses were overwhelmed. The noise, the crowds, the towering buildings. It was all so different from his quiet village. But he had no time to be a tourist. He headed straight for the hospital, the best one he could find. At the reception, he cleared his throat nervously. "Excuse me, I need to see a doctor. It's for my father. He's very ill." The receptionist looked at him doubtfully. "Do you have an appointment? And how will you be paying?" Benjamin pulled out a wad of cash. "I can pay." "Please, it's urgent." The sight of money worked wonders. Soon Benjamin found himself talking to a doctor, describing his father's symptoms. The doctor listened intently, asking questions Benjamin could barely answer. "It sounds serious," the doctor said finally. Your father needs immediate treatment, but it will be expensive. Benjamin nodded. I understand. Whatever it costs, I'll find a way. As he left the hospital with a list of medications and a plan for Papa Benji's treatment, Benjamin felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt hope. But that hope was tempered by a nagging fear. As he walked through the bustling city streets, he couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were following him. Every time he turned around, though, he saw only strangers going about their business. Back in the village, Benjamin's return caused quite a stir. He arrived with bags full of medicine, food, and new clothes for his family. Benjamin! Christabel exclaimed as he entered their hut. What is all this? How did you afford it? Benjamin had prepared for this question. I was lucky, he said, trying to sound casual. I met a kind man in the city who gave me work. He paid in advance when I told him about Papa. Agatha's eyes narrowed slightly, but she said nothing. Papa Benji, however, was too weak to question this sudden turn of fortune. He simply grasped Benjamin's hand weakly. Thank you, my son, he whispered. Over the next few weeks, life changed dramatically for the Benji family. With proper medication and food, Papa Benji's health began to improve. Agatha no longer looked so worn and worried. Christabel's smiles came more frequently. Benjamin made several more trips to the city, each time returning with more supplies and money. He spoke vaguely of his generous employer, deflecting questions about the nature of his work. In the village, people began to notice the change in the Benji family's fortunes. Whispers and rumors spread. Have you seen? The Benjis are no longer starving. I heard Benjamin found work in the city. Must pay well? It's strange, isn't it? Such a sudden change. Uncle Austin was particularly interested in this turn of events. One afternoon, he cornered Benjamin outside the village market. Nephew, he bummed his belly, jiggling as he laughed. I hear you've become quite the provider. Care to share your secret? Benjamin tensed. No secret, Uncle. Just hard work. Uncle Austin's eyes glinted. Hard work, eh? Must be very hard indeed to bring such rewards so quickly. You know, if you ever need help managing your newfound wealth, your dear uncle would be happy to assist. Thank you, Uncle, Benjamin replied stiffly. But I can manage. As Uncle Austin waddled away, Benjamin felt a chill run down his spine. He would have to be more careful. People were starting to ask questions he couldn't answer. That night, as Benjamin lay on his now comfortable sleeping mat, he overheard his parents talking in low voices. It's a miracle, Papa Benji was saying. I never thought I'd feel strong again. Yes, Agatha replied, her voice tense. A miracle? But at what cost, I wonder? What do you mean? Don't you think it's strange? Our son disappears to the city, and suddenly we have more than we've ever had. Benjamin has always been a good boy, but surely you don't think he's done something wrong? Papa Benji sounded shocked. I don't know what to think, Agatha sighed. I just pray that whatever is happening, it doesn't bring trouble to our door. Benjamin squeezed his eyes shut, guilt washing over him. He was helping his family, wasn't he? The end justifies the means. It had to. But even as he tried to reassure himself, a part of him knew that his mother's fears were not unfounded. For in a small hut on the other side of the village, a meeting was taking place that would soon shatter Benjamin's fragile new world. Mr. Ocon sat in the dimly lit room, his massive frame dwarfing the crude wooden chair he sat on. Across from him Sweating nervously, sat one of his men. "Report," Mr. Ocon growled. "Sir," the man began, his voice quavering. "We've been watching the village as you ordered. There's been some unusual activity." Mr. Ocon leaned forward, his eyes glinting dangerously. "Go on." "There's this family, sir, the Benjis. They were dirt poor, everyone knew it. But lately, they've come into money. The son keeps going to the city and coming back with cash, medicine, and new things." "And?" Mr. Ocon's voice was dangerously soft. "And sir, it started right after your money went missing." Mr. Ocon was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but filled with menace. "Find out everything you can about this Benjamin. His family, his friends, his enemies. I want to know where he goes, who he talks to, everything." "Yes, sir," the man nodded frantically. "What then?" A slow, cruel smile spread across Mr. Ocon's face. "Then, my friend, we'll pay young Benjamin a visit, and we'll see just how he explains his sudden good fortune." As the meeting concluded, a cold wind blew through the village, rustling the leaves of the forest where a bag of cursed money lay buried. In his bed, Benjamin shivered in his sleep, unaware that his borrowed time was rapidly running out. The next morning dawned bright and clear, but there was an undercurrent of tension in the air that Benjamin couldn't quite shake. As he went about his daily chores, he couldn't help but feel that eyes were following his every move. His suspicions were confirmed when he went to fetch water from the village well. As he approached, he overheard two women whispering, their voices carrying in the still morning air. "Have you noticed how the Benji boy keeps going to the city?" "Yes, and coming back with more money each time. It's not natural, I tell you." "Do you think he's involved in something illegal?" Benjamin's hands shook as he filled his water jug, pretending not to hear. The whispers fell silent as he turned to leave, but he could feel the weight of curious and suspicious gazes on his back. Back at home, he found Christabel sitting outside, her face troubled. "Benjamin," she said as he approached, "we need to talk." Benjamin's heart sank. He set down the water jug and sat beside his sister. "What is it, Christabel?" She turned to face him, her eyes searching his face. "Brother, where is this money really coming from? And don't tell me it's from work in the city. I know there's more to it than that." Benjamin opened his mouth to protest, but the words died on his lips. Christabel had always been perceptive, and he realized he couldn't lie to her anymore. With a heavy sigh, he began to speak. He told her everything, finding the money in the forest, witnessing Mr. Ocon's brutality and his decision to take the money to save their family. As he spoke, Christabel's eyes widened in horror. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. "Oh, Benjamin," she finally whispered, "what have you done?"
Write the word continue in the comment section if you want the next part, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Kindly click the subscribe button, like, comment, and share this video. Watch out for more intriguing and eye-catching videos from your favorite YouTube channel.